Hello, and thanks for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Up first, there are no watches, warnings, or advisories here in the hazardous weather graphics. All clear, even out in the Aleutians and the southeast coast, the Bering Sea. And looking at satellite imaging, you can see the remnants of a frontal boundary extending from the central Arctic coast in toward and across the Yukon River Valley there, down into the central interior, into the Copper River Basin, and also down the moisture with that wrapping into a low pressure system that moved northward into the, just south of Yakutat today. And that brought pretty good rainfall amounts earlier today to the southern panhandle, that all shifting northward and weakening as time goes on. Otherwise, some good sunshine there over Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, Seward Peninsula today, right on up into the Anchorage, Palmer, Wasilla area, with temperatures in some cases rising into the lower to mid-40s. Seward seeing 43 degrees at mid-afternoon, Kodiak Island 45, Broadview in the Kenai Peninsula about 45 degrees. So pretty good conditions there with high pressure over the central interior. 1,011 millibar high, not all that strong, but good enough to dry it out, clear it out with light winds. Except for the northerlies gusting 30 miles an hour at Seward, and anywhere from 25 gusts 35 along the northern coast of the Panhandle, and the winds dropping off from the 30 to 35 mile an hour wind gusts they had earlier today down to the south. But rainfall amounts fairly significant, 24-hour amounts of about 3 inches fell at Ketchikan. Heidelberg had about 2 inches with that front, still off the coast, weakening though, and Metlakatla picked up about 1.5 inches of precipitation. Trough there, areas of light snow, mostly over the Copper River Basin up into the Tanana Valley to about the Yukon River there. And amounts ranged from, maybe an inch or so around Delta Junction, where they reported light snow the entire day today. Eureka, Copper River Basin, western Copper River Basin had about half an inch of snow. And then much lighter amounts all the way up to the western Arctic coast, just variable clouds there through the north-central interior. Scattered snow showers, Togiak and Kuskokwim Bays, Seward Peninsula, with variably cloudy skies there. And then the sunshine breaking out over the Bristol Bay area, Kodiak Island again, and the Kenai Peninsula. Weak low bringing some moisture up to the Alaska Peninsula. Another weak low kicking off a few showers there for the eastern Aleutians. And then front pulling back to the west, just about out of the picture now. Much better conditions, St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast, what was seen yesterday. Also up on the eastern Arctic coast, much lighter winds, still up to about 20-25 miles an hour up there out of the east and southeast, over towards Barter Island, Kaktovik, and those areas. For tonight, those winds will continue to diminish up there, and pretty much light winds over all of interior Alaska tonight, from the Aleutians all the way to the Panhandle. Weak low there continues in the Gulf. That's going to keep it unsettled, and occasionally damp rain or snow showers, cloudy skies for the southeast coast, North Gulf coast. And that moisture, leftover moisture, continues to kick off some areas of light snow or snow showers, but nothing more than an inch expected anywhere. And that'd probably be more over the Copper River Basin or maybe the 40-mile country, with just trace amounts up to the northwest there to the Wainwright area, maybe Point Lay, but still dry over the western interior. Chance of snow showers in the Bering Strait, western Seward Peninsula, Yukon, Kuskokwim Delta coast. Chance of showers of that low lifting northward, very weak system there, so look for some showers to move into the Bristol Bay area, possibly some moisture chances for Togiak over toward Dillingham, even less of a chance of that for king salmon, and a risk of some shower activity mainly over southern Kodiak Island. Another weak trough brings a light chance of rain or snow shower activity to the eastern Aleutians. Otherwise, you can see the next system just coming onto the picture there. That'll bring gale force winds into the western, then pushing eastward to Adak and eventually to Atka late in the afternoon or toward evening for Atka Island, with rain and keeping temperature in the 40s out that area with the southerly winds, but light winds clearing for the eastern Aleutians, Pribilofs, Alaska Peninsula, risk of a shower or two. That's about it, but light winds across all of mainland Alaska from the Arctic coast into the Gulfs, Panhandle, looking at pretty light wind conditions as well, with some periods of light rain down toward Dixon Entrance. More of a showery condition central Panhandle, probably dry from Juneau on up toward Haines, Skagway, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay areas. Risk of some rain and snow showers along the North Gulf Coast of that weak low there just south of Prince William Sound, and variably cloudy with a chance of showers south central Alaska. And that zone of light snow kind of pulls off to the northwest a little bit there. Still some leftover snow showers along the eastern Alaska range into the mid-Tanana Valley. Best chance would be up from Manly to the Koyukuk Valley all the way to the central Arctic coast, but nothing more than an inch or so expected. And the outlook for Tuesday. New low develops on that frontal boundary and swings just north of Adak and Atka during the day on Tuesday, the afternoon. So the strong easterly and southeast winds will push up into the central Bering Sea, increasing winds for the Pribilofs. And also for the Fox Islands, look for gale force winds with rain, possibly heavy at times there in advance of the front. Winds turn westerly over the Aleutians and diminish. And otherwise, not too bad over the central and western interior of the state. A weak trough up over the western Arctic coast will produce some areas of light snow there, very light flurries, nothing significant at all. And also the Copper River Basin, eastern Alaska range, chance of snow showers with a very weak trough, and another very weak trough there along the North Gulf Coast keeps a chance of showers in Prince William Sound, maybe the Kenai Peninsula. Probably not as extensive as what I have shown there, but probably mostly cloudy kind of day across southern Alaska, northeast of Bristol Bay, and stays unsettled over the Panhandle, the chance of moisture, but again, winds light and precipitation amounts will be on the light side. Otherwise, for the lows tonight, 5 to 10 below there from the upper Yukon Valley to the eastern Arctic coast, around 5 to 10 above for the western Arctic coast, up near 20 toward Point Hope, Cape Lisburne. 5 to 15 over the northwest valleys, Seward Peninsula in the lower 20s, mid-20s for St. Lawrence Island. In the teens over the northern Kuskokwim Valley to the lower Yukon River Valley. The deltas, 20 to 25 for your lows. Lower to mid-30s for the Fox Islands and upper 20s to lower 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay. Lower to mid-20s near freezing for Kodiak. Shade below freezing Adak and Atka. South central Alaska in the 20s. Mid to upper teens for the Copper River Basin. Lower 30s for the North Gulf Coast. Lower 30s northern Panhandle to mid-30s out toward the coast and Prince of Wales Island. Highs tomorrow, 40 to 45 for all of the southeast coast, near 30 for the Copper River Basin, mid to upper 30s, Prince William Sound, Seward, Homer, Seldovia, near 40 for Kodiak, so a little bit cooler. Near 30, or mid-30s for Susitna, Manuska Valley in toward Anchorage. Upper 20s, in the 20s for the Kuskokwim Valley, upper 20s out along the southwest coast to near 30 St. Lawrence Island. And highs up above zero everywhere, even the eastern Arctic coast running 0 to 5 above for your highs, and then mid-teens for the central Arctic coast, and right around 20 for the Kobuk Valley out toward the Kotzebue area. And then lows on Tuesday morning, just a little below zero, 5 to around 0 to 5 below for the upper Yukon Valley to the eastern Arctic coast, and single numbers for the western Arctic coast. And then we've got temperatures running 0 to 5 or so for the central interior up through the Koyukuk Valley to the Brooks Range, and 20s south of the Brooks or south of the Alaska Range, and the Copper River Basin looking at lows in the lower to mid-teens. Upper 20s for the northern Panhandle to lower to mid-30s down to the south, near freezing for your low for Kodiak. Upper 20s, lower 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, lower to mid-20s for Bristol Bay. And mid-30s for the Aleutians, followed by highs on Tuesday afternoon. 0 to 10 for the central and eastern Arctic coast, and in the mid to upper teens for the west side there. In the teens through the Brooks Range into the northern Kobuk, Koyukuk valleys, near 10 for Fort Yukon, and 15 to 25 in the central interior. In the 30s south of the Alaska Range, Susitna Valley to the southern Kenai Peninsula, mid-30s for the North Gulf Coast, and lower to mid-40s for the southern Panhandle, a little cooler to the north, and highs upper 30s to lower 40s.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather, band of marginal VFR, Arctic coast, right down across the central Brooks Range into the central interior, then covering the southeast quarter of mainland Alaska from Cook Inlet eastward. Then some IFR in that area from the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, turn again to Knik Arms, Matanuska Valley, up and across Copper River Basin, and just making it north of the Alaska Range, possibly to Nenana, and good area of IFR, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, into the southwest interior, up along Yukon Delta coast from St. Matthew Island right through the Bering Strait, up catching Point Hope. And otherwise, not too bad. Pribilofs and much of the Aleutians, mostly VFR to the western Alaska Peninsula. Panhandle, IFR with marginal VFR down to the southeast. And for the afternoon, shaping up something like this, becomes VFR for the southeast coast. So pretty good afternoon there as IFR retreats off the coastline. North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. IFR, Copper River Basin into northern Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, marginal VFR. Some IFR, southwest Kodiak Island in that zone right across Bristol Bay into the southwest interior, southern Kuskokwim Valley, right up to St. Lawrence Island, marginal VFR, Norton Sound, and then becoming VFR for the western Seward Peninsula, right on up to the northwest coast. Marginal VFR for the Arctic coast with some IFR on the east side there. And the band of IFR coming in to the Aleutians there with the next system pushing eastward to about Atka, staying VFR, Pribilofs, Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula. And that holds that VFR zone into Tuesday morning through the central Bering Sea from St. Matthew Island to St. George to Unmak Island eastward to the Alaska Peninsula. And that weakening front has a narrowing band of IFR lingering with it there right across Atka Island. IFR, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, Northeast Bristol Bay, Shelikof Strait, and then into most of the Panhandle, marginal VFR southern Alaska with a band right up across the Yukon River to the Arctic coast. For the afternoon, improvement, but still some areas of marginal VFR in interior Alaska, band of IFR North Gulf Coast and north coast of the Panhandle, southern Kenai Peninsula, Kachemak Bay, marginal for Kodiak Island. IFR, pretty widespread, Atka Island eastward to the Alaska Peninsula, and from Amchitka westward, and also over the northern Bering Sea from just north of St. Paul Island to St. Lawrence Island, pretty good zone of IFR. Passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR for the day Monday. Kind of a marginal day for Adigan as well. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR for Monday. Rainy, marginal VFR coming down to IFR, so slowly deteriorating conditions for the day Monday for rainy, windy, mostly marginal, especially on the southern entrance. And Isabel, marginal VFR. Mentasta looks pretty marginal. Tanita, IFR to marginal VFR. A little improvement there. And for Portage, IFR. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR to start, becoming VFR during the morning hours through the afternoon. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet, southern Panhandle at the surface, still inland over the Copper River Basin through western Cook Inlet into Bristol Bay, Cape Newenham, just north of the Pribilofs. And as far as icing goes, with that system coming into the western Aleutians, the stronger one toward the southwest Bering Sea, considerable moderate rime icing, 5 to 16,000 feet, give or take there. Not quite making it to Atka throughout the day. And then a narrow band of icing potential there. Very isolated, moderate, mostly light, possibly mixed from the central Arctic coast down across the Yukon River into the Copper River Basin, right across, looks like the Fairbanks area, North Gulf Coast, and just catching the southern Panhandle. Jet stream, main jet south of the Panhandle, right across Vancouver Island, up to 125 knots, southern British Columbia. Pretty light over much of Alaska. Out in the Aleutians, Unmak Island, northwest 16 knots, southerlies at about 80 knots with that system coming in from the southwest, and 55 to 65 knot winds with the low over the just south of Shemya, southwest Bering Sea there. Otherwise, pretty light winds elsewhere across the entire forecast area. 3,000 feet, same thing, very light variable winds across all of mainland Alaska, northern eastern Bering Sea. Westerlies maybe 20 to 30 knots, southern Kodiak Island, Sitkinak area, and that's about it. Pretty light and variable for the southeast coast. Otherwise, out west, 60 to 65 knots southerlies. Results in moderate turbulence from Atka Island westward to Shimian at 2.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us once again is Eric Stevens, our good friend from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at UAF. And thanks for joining us, Eric. Really appreciate it.
Oh, happy to be here, Dave.
And we love to hear about all the fascinating developments, new and old, and how we're using the tools here, especially around Alaska. And I've got to think that, satellite meteorology right now is a fascinating time to be involved in. If we go back to the first satellite, Tyros, back in 1960, I think is when we got some of those first pictures, weather and meteorology probably changed that day for a whole lot of people, and it's still changing today, right?
Oh, you know it. Satellite imagery is so important, and it's getting better all the time. Yeah. Of course, never perfect, but especially for us in Alaska, where there are other data sets like radars and weather balloons are so thinly spread. Right. The satellite is the great equalizer because the satellite sees everything.
Right.
Yeah. Right. We've got one particular issue in volcanic ash detection.
That's a big deal here. Yeah.
You know it. If you fly an airplane into volcanic ash, your jet engine might just fail. And an airplane without engines is in a world of hurt. Sure. So if there's a volcano that goes off, satellite imagery is the way to track that plume of ash and to tell pilots this is where you need to not be to avoid this ash plume. And there's a phrase out there, what's the difference? What's the difference?
Okay.
Well, it turns out, what we're going to discuss today, that the difference is everything. There's a technique called channel differencing. Okay. That if you take one piece of the spectrum of what the satellite detects and a slightly different wavelength of that spectrum, even though those two images might look similar, magical things happen when you subtract one from the other. And they reveal information that was already there, but it was hard to find until you did that subtraction.
This sounds like Nicolas Cage in National Treasure when he's got those fancy glasses and he's flipping one up and back and forth. I mean, is this what we're talking about?
Well, let's go more highbrow and talk Michelangelo. Oh, so apparently Michelangelo made some amazing sculpture, and someone said, Michael, that's amazing. How did you do it? And Michelangelo's reply allegedly was, well, in that rock, the statue was already in there. Right. I just scraped away the unnecessary bits. In satellite meteorology, sometimes there are meteorological features that are in the data, but you can't see it until you combine or difference some of the channels. Okay. And we've got a case, good old Pavlov volcano goes off now and then. Sure. And you can observe directly a picture of the volcano. Just take it with your iPhone. You can see a volcano going off. Yep. Right. But if you want to get the broad view, we need satellite to do that. Now, there are a couple of wavelengths that we can look at. So what's a wavelength? That's the amount of space between a peak and a valley and another peak in a certain part of the electromagnetic spectrum. We're going to look at 12 micron wavelength and 10.8 micron wavelength.
What is a micron?
So what's a micron? Yeah, we're getting into the geek department now. A micron is a unit of length, and it is quite tiny. We're looking at what's called long wave wavelengths, but it takes 25,000 of these microns to make an inch. A human blood cell is about 5 microns across. So when we're talking about 12 micron imagery as allegedly long wave, well, that's relative.
Pretty short for light.
Yeah, it's other part of the, it's just an expression for the spectrum there. Okay. So we can look at a 12 micron image, say a satellite image. At 12 microns, we're seeing a heat signature here, really, and the way this color enhancement works is the yellow and the red stuff is high cold clouds down here over the Gulf of Alaska into South Central. And if you were asked, where do you find the volcanic ash plume in this image?
Hey, where do you find the volcanic plume in this image?
It's hard to do. I'm not sure I could find it. If you were to look at this image and just say, show me what jumps out at you here, I'd say, well, nothing really. Well, let's look. So 12 micron doesn't help us. Let's look at 10.8 microns. All right. All right, look at that. It's practically the same image. So where's this volcanic ash? Can't find it at 12 microns, can't really see it at 10.8, but when we subtract one channel from the other, magically, The plume appears. The color enhancement here highlights the ash in blue.
Wow.
The information was already there, but we couldn't find it until we subtracted one channel from another.
Very interesting.
It's almost magical. Similarly, let's say you're looking for fog up on the north slope. It's kind of a foggy neighborhood.
Sure.
In 11 micron and 3.9 micron, we've got a 3.9 micron image here. It's a big fuzzy blur over Barrow. We can't see where the fog is. But the information is lurking in there waiting for us to reveal it. All we have to do is find that difference between the 11 micron and the 3.9, and then this image becomes this image, and the fog bank jumps right out, and you can see it up there at Barrow. Now, you got to choose the right tool for the job.
Sure.
Like they say, you open your toolbox, all kinds of stuff in there. What do we need for this particular task? If you want to find volcanic ash, we look at 12 and 10.8 micron, find that difference. If you want to find fog, we'll look at 11 and 3.9 micron, find that difference. It's great, different tools for different jobs. Of course, there's always caveats and gotchas, but this fog procedure, it only works at night, because when the sun comes up, it gets in the way. So every product has its strengths and limitations, and in meteorology, the challenge is using the right tool for the right job, and these are some of those tools.
And discovery is still happening, even with meteorology. The weather's been around for a long time, but the tools that are being developed to understand the meteorology is fascinating and still very new science.
It's such a young science. We've come so far. I'm getting old enough now that I can literally say that, when I was a boy, we didn't have this kind of thing. And there's new things happening all the time. New satellites will be launched in coming years that will have better instruments than ever before. It's an exciting time, and this is so helpful for Alaska because satellites help fill in the gaps between other ways of observing the weather. Satellites, the great equalizer for Alaska.
Yeah, and help so many people stay safe in so many ways every day up here in the last frontier.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, protecting lives and property.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again, Eric. We love to hear about this fascinating information, and boy, it just makes me want to go watch satellite pictures all day. So hopefully we're inspiring more people to do the same thing and just be curious. It's a wonderful thing. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Coastal water forecast, east winds 20 knots on the south coast, seas around 10 feet. North coast, northeast to southeast winds 15 to 20 knots with 8-foot seas. Stevens Passage, northwest winds 20 knots, seas 4 feet. Clarence Strait, northwest winds 20 knots, seas 4 feet. Stevens Passage, northeast winds 20 knots, seas 4 feet. Lynn Canal, north 15 knots, seas 3 feet. And the outlook for Tuesday, Lynn Canal, north winds 20 knots. Stevens Passage, north winds 15 knots. Clarence Strait, southeast at 20. And for the south coast, southwest winds 15 knots. Central coast, east winds of 15 knots. And the north coast, east winds at 10 knots. Prince William Sound, north winds 10 knots, seas 2 feet. Variable to northeast winds at 10 knots for Cook Inlet with 1 to 2 foot seas. Light variable winds for Kamishak Bay. And the Barren Islands, southwest at 15. Western North Gulf Coast, west winds 15 knots. Eastern North Gulf Coast, variable winds at 10. And for Tuesday, Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast, Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, all variable winds 10 knots, seas 2 to 5 feet. Cook Inlet, variable to north breezes at 10 knots with 2-foot seas. Kodiak Island, variable to south winds 15 knots or 10 to 15 knots for the day Monday. Seas 2 to 7 feet. Alaska Peninsula variable to west winds 15 knots with 4 to 8 foot seas. Bristol Bay light northeast breeze at 10 knots, seas at 2 feet. Those winds will pick up to 20 knots from the east for Bristol Bay on Tuesday. Seas build to 3 feet, and small craft advisories for the Alaska Peninsula. Southeast winds increasing to 30 knots in the afternoon with 5 to 9 foot seas. And for Kodiak Island, southwest winds 15 knots, 6-foot seas. Fox Islands, west winds 15 knots, seas 5 to 8 feet. Gale warnings for the Central Aleutians, southeast winds increasing to 35 knots in the afternoon. And from Amchitka to Shemya, gale warnings, southeast winds 40 knots, 12 to 14-foot seas. Outlook for Tuesday, for Shemya to Kiska, gale warnings, southwest 40 knots, seas 25 feet. Amchitka Island, southwest winds 30 knots, seas 24 feet. And for Adak and Atka, gale warnings, south to southwest winds 40 knots, seas as high as 23 feet. Gale warnings for Unimak Island, south to southeast winds 40 to 45 knots. On Alaska Island, minimum gales from the southeast at 35 knots. And for the southwest coast, winds pretty light tomorrow, variable to southeast at 10 knots, seas in the ice-free waters to 2 feet. Light variable winds for the Pribilof, seas 5 feet. Light variable winds for St. Matthew Island at 10 knots. And for St. Lawrence Island, east winds at 15 knots and just a 10-knot breeze from the east for Norton Sound. And the outlook for Tuesday, east winds 15 knots for St. Lawrence Island. And brisk wind advisories for the Yukon Delta coast, east winds increasing to 25 knots. Gale warnings for St. Matthew Island, northeast winds 35 knots. Gale warnings also for the Pribilofs, east winds 35 knots, seas 10 feet. And small craft advisories for the Kuskokwim Delta coast, east winds at 25 knots. Brisk wind advisories for the far eastern Arctic coast or Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, southeast at 30. Otherwise, central coast running east to southeast at 10 to 20 knots. And from Cape Beaufort to Wales, winds will be southeast at 20. Those winds become more northerly and light from Wales to Cape Lisburn, on average north at 10 knots. And for the western and central coast, east-northeast winds at 10 knots. East side, east winds 15 to 30 knots. And for tonight, a weak trough will produce a widespread areas of light snow and flurries or snow showers, but nothing more than an inch expected. And that'll extend down to the Copper River Basin, some rain and snow showers for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound mostly. Otherwise, stays dry with some clearing, southern Cook Inlet up into the western interior, lingering snow showers along the west coast there, especially Bristol Bay with a weak low there. And a couple of low centers keep it pattern unsettled for the Panhandle. Next big storm coming into the picture in the western Aleutians late tonight pushes gale force winds eastward to Adak late tomorrow afternoon with rain. Dry in the western interior, areas of light snow in the central interior of the state from the Arctic coast down into Cook Inlet. And still unsettled over the Panhandle, but drier in the north. That pattern continues into Tuesday as well. Southern Alaska, scattered snow showers, mostly cloudy skies. Rain or snow showers a possibility for Kodiak Island. Dry in the central interior and the Yukon Delta. Areas of light snow northwest.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.